This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, saving your day from boredom with the best podcasting entertainment.
Hello and welcome to Superfans. This is your one-stop shop for all Chicago sports podcasting, and we have a great show for you today. We're recording this as round, what are we in, round 4? Round 5 of the, we are in 6
now.
Damn, they're flying through. Where was that night one? We're in round 6 of the NFL draft as we speak, so we'll be giving you our Bears draft reaction as it comes in, and then we'll be doing a fantastic topic from Sophie.
I love it.
I want to say Sophie, but fantastic topic from Sophie, one of our patrons, on the show today about an all-90s decade team. But before we get into it, I do want to shout out our patrons. I do want to say thank you to all of them. We just got done doing the fast break today. We had John on. It was an excellent episode. We talked to him for well over, I think right around an hour. And it was just a great time. So if you do want to support us at this time, we appreciate it. I know you guys have a lot going on though. So if you want to support us, just check out YouTube, check out Twitch, subscribe to our channel. You know, that really is what counts most for us going forward. So thank you so much. Today, I'm joined by Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys? As I fix
and
my
Sean
headset.
Anderson.
Hello there.
Yawning as always. I want to
woke up 2 hours ago, guys.
Sean Anderson
that's
yawning
fair.
on my couch.
Yep, yawning on his couch.
I wook up at 11:50 and walked right downstairs and put on a
I dig the Hawaiian shirt though. I think I like the cut on that one. But yeah, it's draft day, day 3. It's wonderful. We had a lot of excitement. We did a live watch along on Discord for our patrons. Night 1, we streamed it. Night 2, we watched along. It was a great time. But the Bears made a couple of picks in the second round, and I think we'll start with the second round picks because I think those are the ones that everybody's got in their name. We haven't had a ton of time to look at their later picks because we've been recording the fast break, but we will touch on them today for sure. So with the second round, the Bears' first pick, they took a tight end out of Notre Dame, Cole Kmet, and local kid. Love the idea of going after that Y tight end, someone who can get down in the dirt, be a blocker, but also run the seams for us. So, Ricky, I want to go to you first. Bears,
the non-Bears
fan.
fan.
Yeah, that's I'm a Bears fan. I like the idea of going for the tight end, but I know why people are unhappy about it.
Yeah,
I want to go to an outsider. From the outside, you think, watching Bears last year, it's like, oh yeah, they definitely need to nail down the tight end position.
Yeah, I mean, when you got 7 tight ends on the roster, what do you need? Another tight end. From what I was looking at, I didn't get the pick. I didn't get it to where I know I saw a tweet from ESPN that's like, he could be the next Rob Gronkowski. It's like, okay, Adam Shaheen was supposed to be the next Rob Gronkowski. Every time there's a tight end, it's like, oh, could he be the next Rob Gronkowski? I don't want to hear that shit. But you bring in Jimmy Graham.
It's the same thing whenever a quarterback gets drafted in the 6th round. Oh, can he be the next Tom Brady?
We're going to hear it about Jake Fromm because he got drafted in 5.
Yeah.
So it's close enough. But I mean, you bring in Jimmy Graham. You have so many tight,
Jimmy Graham.
And here's the reason why. Like, it's not a bad pick because of who you picked.
Yeah,
it's
the best tight end in the draft.
In
the second round.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's a bad pick because of who was else on the board. Like for me, if I'm a Bears fan, I rather you, instead of taking a tight end, go ahead and take Mims out of Baylor. Like, I know that, like, even there's later picks. Like, Sean, you were saying before it went on, why did we take Mooney out of Tulane and not go with Donovan Peoples-Jones out of Michigan? Where it's like, I feel like I'm watching Ryan Pace's last draft. That's what I feel like I'm watching here. Because, like, just with that pick, I didn't like it. Go at wide receiver, especially with Mims on the board.
Sean, can you fill us in on maybe why he went this direction and what, I guess, a little bit more about Cole Kmet, because I didn't really go too in depth about it.
Well, I truly see where Ricky was coming from, because when asked before they went and drafted these picks, after day 1, I said I wanted Grant Delpit and I wanted Denzel Mims. Both of those could have been selections. They could have taken Grant Delpit at 43. They could have taken Mims at 50. I'm sorry. They could have had both of those guys that I wanted. I'm not coming away from this draft, though, slighted by what Ryan Pace is doing. Now, do I think this will be his last draft? No. Is it possible? Yes. If he doesn't win 9 or 10 games, it doesn't get back to the playoffs, it's absolutely possible that he gets fired. There's talk that now during this draft, day 3, that Mitchell Trubisky will likely not be picked up for his 5th year. Adam Schefter is reporting that. I think that was a move to throw out that, hey, we have someone available if you're looking for a quarterback. And we'll flip Mitch for a pick. It seemed like Ryan Pace was trying to leverage Mitch Trubisky for draft picks today. It seems, though, after day 2, I thought they had a B to a B- draft. I think that they are trying to fully help out this team as much as they possibly can for this year. I think Ryan Pace knows that he is somewhat in a desperate position. That's why he keeps trading up. We keep seeing multiple trade ups in the 5th round. They don't have a 6 now. They only have 2 7s, 226 and 227. We'll see where they go here. But at least speaking on the Kmet pick, I don't hate it, mainly because he was a guy that really only played 1 full year at Notre Dame. Watched a lot of his game last year. Very impressive player.
Yeah.
He is a very athletic player coming out of St. Viator, played baseball at Notre Dame, and the biggest knock that I've heard so far on him is that he's a bad blocker. But a lot of people don't really agree on that. I mean, some people feel like he is somewhat of a fairly ready-to-go prospect. I think that, now that we have Demetrius Harris, now that we have Jimmy Graham, and now we have Cole Kmet, I don't think that there's an excuse if the tight end position doesn't work. If the tight end position doesn't work, I don't think it's on Ryan Pace not getting talent. I don't think that it's on, it's more on Matt Nagy and then the quarterback situation if this tight end situation doesn't work out. I don't think it'll be Gronk. But do I think that he can be a starting tight end for, 10 years? Yeah. I mean, he talked yesterday saying that Greg Olsen was his favorite player growing up and that he was heartbroken when they traded away. All of us were. He grew up a Bears fan, so every Bears fan still regrets the day that Jerry Angelo traded away traded away Greg Olsen. So I look at this Kmet pick before we get into the Jaylen Johnson pick. I don't think it was necessary, but I don't hate it because now seeing how the draft is played out, they feel like Anthony Miller is their number 2 wide receiver. It feels like Allen Robinson contract extension is coming up at some point. So if you're taking Denzel Mims, I mean, the dude's 6'4", you're not putting him in the slot. And it feels like they liked where Anthony Miller was on the outside last year. So now that they were just looking for a slot wide receiver, Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's 6'6", doesn't really make a lot of sense for a slot wide receiver, where you look at Darnell Mooney, who can run a 4.38. That makes a little bit more sense for a prototypical slot wide receiver. So looking at where they have gotten to this journey, I don't hate the Kmet pick. I think it was fine. I think they probably could have helped their team out more right away, but so far they haven't done that. The Kmet pick's fine. But yeah, I think that we'll probably see him be more of a pass catching tight end, try to fill the role of what Trey Burton was. But if he also is that blocking tight end, I wouldn't be shocked as well. They might be truly high on him because I think he's probably already a better blocker than Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham has really lost that part of his game.
Allergic to blocking.
Yeah, I mean, he's never been a blocker, and just in his older age, just never that type of guy. So, I mean, and Demetrius Harris is a fairly good blocker. So, I think they got 2 guys that are capable of blocking and 2 guys that are available catching, and Kmet could be that a little bit of a hybrid.
Well, one of the big things I've noticed from Ryan Pace is when we have a position of need, he attacks it in bunches. It's not just let me get a guy. You look back a couple of years, and we went out, we got Robinson. We got Taylor Gabriel, and we got the wide receiver you literally just mentioned, who I can't remember. Anthony Miller. So we got 3 guys in one off season. We needed a kicker. We're going to try out 12 of them.
Yep.
We're going to go ahead and throw everything we can at it and make sure that there's no excuse to miss on this. So
the only position we haven't done that with is the quarterback.
I agree, and I'm surprised we haven't yet. But
we've seen running backs. Jordan Howard. We see the dude from Seattle that was god awful. Mike Davis. We see Tariq Cohen. We see Cordero Patterson. We see obviously they trade up for David Montgomery. I mean, literally every position. Ryan
bunches.
Yeah,
and that's his strategy.
He loves the idea of depth. You're right.
Yeah, so I think it's one of those situations where I don't hate the pick. I know as many times people want to meme the 10 tight ends on the roster. Like we're gonna go into the season with like you said, 3 tight ends, and then a couple guys. Well, no, I'm saying like 3 starting
Yeah.
caliber tight ends, and then we're gonna have a couple guys who are gonna be special teamer, practice squad kind of guys. And I think probably we'll have maybe five or six on the roster by the time that everything's said and done. So I'm not overly concerned with that.
The 4 I would say that would be on the roster, and I could be wrong about it, but it would be Harris, Kmet, Graham, and then Broniker. I mean, I think they'll probably move Horsted to the
practice squad.
The practice squad, and then I think that they'll probably keep JP Holtz around. I just don't know if they're going to label him as a tight end or a fullback because they did typically use him in a fullback setting.
Right, and I mean, this to me just feels like a do-over on the Shaheen pick. Like this is we took Shaheen because he was an athletic monster who didn't have the skills. We were now taking what is hopefully a complete package, someone who is more polished, someone who can come in day one and make a difference. So I'm kind of excited about the player. I agree with you, though. The pick and the priority does leave something to be desired. With their second pick, that number 50 overall, they did go after Jaylen Johnson, corner out of Utah, who honestly was one of the best, lockdown corners in the college game last year. Incredible numbers overall. He played the whole year with a shoulder injury, torn labrum, right? And I was listening to, he did an interview, like 20-minute piece, talk about how this is his 3rd shoulder injury. One first injured, then he overcompensated, so he hurt his other shoulder and then back. And it's just like, okay, that's a hint of something wrong, but at the same time, this guy has absolute first-round talent. He is so good at what he does. He can lock people up. And it was funny because in the interview he was doing, they were trying to ask like, oh, well, you went up against, wide receivers out in Pac-12 that are going in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd round. Like, which one of them, how hard is it to guard these guys? And he goes back and he's starting to talk out like, oh man, Pettis, and he's such a clean route runner, and going up against him was a real challenge. And then another kid out of Oregon who was a challenge, but not any of these like big name receivers. He's not afraid. He is the guy who trailed the number 1 wide receiver on the other team ever since his sophomore year. He's been up for the challenge. He's super physical. I absolutely love the idea of him being our one-on-one guy on the outside. So what do you guys think about him?
Well,
this is your best
I'll take
pick.
it, Ricky.
Best pick.
Yeah, it's their best pick, 100%. And I think we were talking a little bit before. I think the reason they went with him over a Diggs or over a Fulton as well was the traits that you were talking about, the man-to-man capabilities. And a lot of the experts and a lot of the guys that know a lot about Jaylen said that his pro comparison, it would be fair to liken him to a Prince Amukamara. So, I mean, and that's the guy that he's replacing. It's the guy that on the outside that he's going to be replacing. And I think that the biggest thing that stood out for me is not only the production that he had at Utah, not only being a part of a great defense, not only having that comp to Prince Amukamara, who was, I mean, it probably still can be a very good cornerback in this league right now. Just wasn't worth the $10 million. But I mean, Prince Amukamara was at a point one of the best cornerbacks in the league. So if he hits this potential, we're talking about possibly some of the best 1-2 combos cornerback wise in the league in Kyle Fuller and Jaylen Johnson. And Jaylen Johnson also seems very knowledgeable of the Bears defense. He said that he's watched a ton of Kyle Fuller tape, modeled his game a little bit after Kyle Fuller. And the other thing that stood out to me that kind of showed me, all right, I was sold on his tape, sold on the production, I'm sold on what his defense did. I think he's a leader. I think he's a very smart kid. The big thing that stood out to me the most was on the conference call after he was picked with the Bears media. He said that he wasn't upset where he was, but he thought he was going to go a lot higher. And he is very grateful at where the Bears took him. And he said this very elegantly. The most that you could say that I should have gone higher, but I am so grateful for where I've gone. But he's coming in with a chip on his shoulder. Not only does he's trying to prove that he's healthy, he's also trying to prove that he should have been a first-round pick. And that's the thing that I love, right? This could have been an Eddie Jackson-like steal because the only reason he fell was because of injuries. I think that if he was coming in with a clean slate, this kid would have been a first-round draft pick. And I absolutely love it. I think this was their best pick, like Ricky said. I'll let him get into it, but yeah, this is a knockout pick. Still concerned that they haven't addressed safety yet through all of the picks that they had. I thought that was a bigger need than cornerback, but there are still a lot of free agents that are out there safety-wise, and this also kind of shows that they trust the guys that are currently on the roster, at least at safety, to play the box.
And that's another thing. Like, you bring up the safety thing that I'm thinking, and that's why it goes back. I want to go back to the Kmet pick with this. Is you get a great player, I'm going to say, in Johnson, and having the chip on your shoulder, you want to hear that if you're a Bears fan, because just of the city of Chicago and our attitude, more kind of blue collar, like, hey, work for everything, nothing's handed to you, kind of like the lunch pail mentality is what we like to see from our athletes. And you get Johnson, who fell. You had a prime opportunity to take either safety that has the same chip on their shoulder, in my mind. Grant Delpit, a guy who was getting first round grades early on in the draft process because of injury and everything. He fell. You got Antoine Winfield Jr., son of the great Antoine Winfield. I would have taken either of those guys. Like, they could have doubled down on the defense, get their secondary early on, and then have been set. Like, this is something where it's like, yes, there's a few diamond, like, you look at everything and there's a few good things about some things that are bad, but I look at this and I go, overall as a draft, and we're going to get into the other picks, overall, is this draft going to help the Bears now? Because I know drafting, like we talked with John in the NBA, you're going to draft for the future.
Right.
But Ryan Pace doesn't have 5 years. Like Sean said, Ryan Pace has to win now. And are these players going to help now? I don't think so. And except for Johnson, I don't think so.
Well, I think Kmet can help. I don't know if he'll be like, the game changer offensively, but I don't think they're drafting him to be that. I think what they're drafting him to be is to be another weapon to open up this offense, because this offense was so bad. Like, if Cole Kmet helps them and Jimmy Graham helps them and all the other additions they've made offensively this offseason help them to become a top 15 offense, that's enough.
That's a massive leap right there from where we were at last year.
That team is going to be a 10-win team, 11-win team right there, just on the low fact that your defense is going to be that much better. And you're going to likely go back to the top 5 or top 3 in defense. I'm not worried about that. The biggest thing that I look at is Ryan Pace has no worries or qualms to trade up, but he also didn't look at the Trent Williams trade. Like, we couldn't afford a 3rd and a 5th, but we can afford a future 4th next year to move up and take a ton of these players in this draft. I don't. Yeah, Gibson from Tulsa. We traded up a future 4th to get him. We couldn't have used one of our 5ths and then that future 4th and then something else to possibly get the Redskins to give us Trent Williams. The biggest need on this team left, you could argue, that is offensive tackle and safety. And those were probably the biggest needs that I thought they had coming into this draft, and they still haven't touched them. That's a worry to me. You need an offensive tackle because Bobby Massey and Charles Leno Jr. were absolutely god-awful last year. And you look at the safety position, Eddie Jackson is probably, in my mind, I would say top 3. I don't think anyone's going to argue if saying top 3 safety, but he still needs help next to him. He still needs the ability to move and roam. Haha did not give him that last year, and maybe they think that the answer is currently on the roster, and if they do, that's fine. But you do need to, and that's something that you're going to need to show now. Like, you need to show that the guys that are currently on the roster are going to be able to step up and play next to Eddie Jackson, because if they're not, you're going to look stupid not addressing that with, Grant Delpit at 43. That's where it gets a little bit tricky, that if the needs that are exposed, like offensive tackle and like safety, are exposed, this year when they play, if they play, that's where it's going to be a referendum on Ryan Pace. Why didn't you go get Trent Williams? Why didn't you go get Ezra Cleveland out of Boise State with one of those picks? Why didn't you go get Grant Delpit? Right now, I don't think the moves have been bad. I think that all of them have been pieces to help this team, but I do have concerns about Ryan Pace, him moving up consistently, and then him not addressing some of the larger needs on this team and the faith that he has currently in this roster.
The good news is, and if I'm the Bears right now, you got as we're recording this, 2 7th-round picks left. And there's a guy offensive tackle-wise who's still on the board. He's fallen because of injury. Last year when he was going to come out, Mark and I had him first-round talent. End of the first round, it's Trey Adams out of Washington.
Oh,
Injured last year, would have been a first, second rounder for me. I'm going to do the Mel. Would have been a first, second rounder for me. Has good talent, can block on the offensive line. But yeah, he's fallen. He's still on the board right now as we're talking.
Keep doing the Kuiper thing. That was pretty decent.
The Kuiper? Well, he's still on the board. Bears can take him. Don't know where he's going to go. The Bears might have to take the 7th round picks that they have, trade up for him. But is Ryan Pace going to make that move? I don't know, Sean. Like
you don't have the
I don't have the exact voice, but it's the cadence.
But the cadence,
like cadence is pretty good.
All of these guys, like Rappaport and Schefter, same exact cadence. They have the same exact cadence, but like with Trey Adams, he's still on the board.
Yeah.
If I'm Ryan Pace right now, because you have 2 7ths, fuck those 7ths. I'll trade both of them to try to get Trey Adams here in the 6th. Anyway,
I wouldn't hate that. Like if they're taking those 2 7ths to go get a player that could start for them.
Yeah. Like this guy, you already took a guy with injury questions with Johnson, who if he pans out will be phenomenal. Why not do that on the offensive side?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if all 32 teams are passing on that, though, it's probably that's where the medicals become truly iffy. But you're right about Trey Adams. I mean, I remember reading about him last year. I mean, the kid's a stud.
But and really too, it's you look at it, it's like the medicals might be true, but really 6th and 7th round picks. How much value do they hold? Exactly. And I'll fucking throw 2 7ths away to take a guy in the 6th.
To be fair, undrafted free agents kind of our jam too. So I'm not even worried about that.
And here's another question I want to throw out. And maybe it's because in this guy you might say, well, he didn't fit the whole, because Sean was talking about slot receivers. And I don't think this guy fits a slot receiver. But like I look at what the Colts did in the 2nd, where they traded the 44th and what was it, their 5th rounder? Yeah, the 2nd and the 5th, the 44th and the 160th pick to move up to the 41st pick with Cleveland to take Jonathan Taylor. And I'm looking at it's like if let's say the Bears wanted Senault out of Colorado. Like, why didn't we see a trade up earlier from the Bears? Like, why be so aggressive later? Because we've seen aggressiveness in the 5th. Why not be aggressive in that 2nd rounder and get a guy that you want?
Yeah.
Like, I'd give up a 2nd and a 5th to move up a couple spots to get a guy in the 2nd that I want.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. That's why I'm kind of bashing the non-move for Trent Williams, because that's a Pro Bowl. That's an all-pro tackle right there that you just immediately improve your offense immediately with 1 pick. And then no other players, whether it be at that 3rd or 5th, could have that much of an impact right away. If you're in win now mode, you should have made a trade like that, right? I don't want to harken on what could have happened, but I agree with you that like I would like to have seen more aggressiveness to move up to get more impactful players, because this team right now, I mean, the team that won the division last year is probably having the worst draft I've ever seen. The Green Bay is having a atrocious draft.
I mean, are you saying
they took the future
quarterback and a 3rd string running back are not how you improve your team?
They took a quarterback that won't play for 4 years. They took a running back in AJ Dillon, who seems like a great kid.
I love AJ
but
Dillon.
Literally is a 1950s back. When you have Aaron Jones, who's a top 5 back, you took a tight end out of Cincinnati, who is a project and might not even be a tight end.
Hey man,
might be an oversized receiver.
Hey man,
and then they find
he's number 2 behind
Blake
Brent Selleck.
Yeah, they go out and get Kamal Martin, who I think is probably pretty much their only like decent draft pick, taking him out of Minnesota to replace Blake Martinez. I mean, this is the time to attack, right?
FTP.
It feels like Nick Foles is going to be the quarterback. It feels like this team has got Kmet, they got Graham, they got Demetrius Harris, they got Robinson, they got Anthony Miller. They now have Darnell Mooney, who they took in the 5th round. They still have the guys that the Ridley from last year that they have. They still got the kid from Georgia that I'm blanking on his name, Wims, right? They still have David Montgomery. They still have Cohen. Like, you still need to protect these guys, and that's the biggest issue, that we still have a guard position open, and both of our tackles suck. We needed to make a move somewhere there, and maybe Trent Williams' cap was too much, but I think that this team has the potential to win the NFC North, but there are still glaring issues that if they're addressed, it makes that job much easier. But if it's not addressed, we could be looking at the same thing again, where we have
this
a
was
bottom of the offense in the NFL again.
You were a 13-3 team not even 2 years ago, right? Bears were 13-3 with the double doink year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is a team that you say, oh, can win the division. Yeah, it's proven. You won it 2 years ago. Like, last year was an anomaly for most of us, where it's like, how is this team this bad? And, like, with the Bears and what I've seen with their draft, they're not guys that are going to help immediately. They're going to be guys that, if they do pan out, they'll pan out when Ryan Pace is not here anymore.
Well, I think that I want to be a little bit more. I think Johnson will pan out this year. I think Johnson could be an impact player.
He'll pan out when Pace isn't here, though.
No, I mean, he'll be here this year, so I think Johnson could have a good first rookie year. I think Kmet. I mean, if he's coming in and he's getting 350 yards receiving, he's a fine blocker in the run game, and he's catching a couple touchdowns, I think that's panning out there. And I do wonder, like, the biggest now true gamble or steal possibly is this Darnell Mooney kid from Tulane. I didn't hear much about him, and now that he's drafted, we're seeing all these great releases out of Tulane. He had a game against Eastern Carolina back in 2018 with 6 catches, 217 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He ran a 4.38. So I mean, that just seems like your Taylor Gabriel replacement right there. So it feels like, we look at the people that they lost, right? You cut Prince Amukamara, well, you get Jaylen Johnson. You cut Taylor Gabriel, well, you get Darnell Mooney. It feels like they are trying to get the cheaper options of those guys while
and
still being competitive.
Cole Kmet,
exactly,
position for position. So,
so
I do give them credit, but the offensive line is terrifying, and that's the problem. We are just at a place where our quarterbacks will not have that extra time, unless they know something about bounce back years that we don't. I'm still not sure how far this team will be able to get without that.
According to our lads, this is your starting offensive line. At right tackle, Bobby Massey. At right guard, they have Coward, but you also have Fetty that you got from Seattle. Whitehead at center. Yeah. James Daniel or Corey Levin at left guard, and then Charles Leno at left tackle.
Yeah, I forgot about the Fetty thing. I'm not sold on it. I mean, some people, what I've gotten from Seattle people is you either love him or hate him. There really isn't any in between with him. He was penalized a ton, which just fits in perfectly with Bears tackles or guards. I mean, they like Alex Bars. I like Alex Bars. He'd be interesting as well. I still have concerns. Coward was a defensive tackle, but he didn't look bad last year. The issues, though, are still on the tackle. Like, I don't think Bars is a tackle. I don't think he'll play tackle. Afedi played some tackle in Seattle, but our lads has him listed as a guard, so I trust Shanka and our lads there. I still look at Massey and Leno as big ifs, big what ifs there. Like, I think the interior of the line is fine, but it's really the outside tackles, and that's where I'm mainly concerned about this, because Nick Foles isn't a guy that's durable, right? If you're looking to move on from Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles is your guy, you need to protect him, because Nick Foles has been injured before. He doesn't play full seasons. That's the biggest knock on Nick Foles.
Yep.
I'm concerned about that.
Mitch plays the first Mitch plays the first 5 games, gets him going, and Nick Foles carries you to the playoffs.
But can Mitch Trubisky even put us in a position to take us to the playoffs?
Depends on
Carson Wentz having an MVP season in 2017. We're talking about Mitch Trubisky, who might not even get his 5th-year option picked up.
Depends on the schedule. Maybe get the Lions.
Pat Mahomes and Sean Watson.
Maybe get the Lions in those 4 games. Get a win. You're fucking 2-2 after 4, and then Nick Foles brings you to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I don't think I can draft or grade this draft. To be honest with you,
you gotta wait for the next 2 picks.
We have to see how these guys play, and we have to see what they're going to do after it. Like, who are the UDFAs they're going to bring in? What's their cap salary like? What's their cap room like after this? Can they go out and make more moves? Can they, look to get
free agency over?
I think Von Bell is still a free agent, and that's the guy that I absolutely loved to be our box safety. Like, if we're able to bring him in. No, he signed with the Bengals, so never mind. But yeah, I mean, like, I the biggest needs that I thought coming into this draft were safety and tackle. Those haven't been addressed, but I don't think I hate the draft. So that's why I really can't rate on what Pace has done.
And another OT just went off the board to the Packers.
Oh,
John
nice.
Runyon out of Michigan. So Trey Adams.
Good for him.
There.
Yep.
Congrats for John.
One of the other 5th-round picks the Bears made was Kendall Vildor, out of Georgia Southern corner. So he's a bit more of a ball hawk, looks like. As far as safety, he's a little bit bigger, though. So questions there. Some of the other stuff people have been talking about as far as this Bears secondary is they're talking about, hey, we had a project last year in Steven Denmark from Valdosta. Big corner, 6'2", 220. I could see him develop. They developed him on the practice squad. He's a big hitter. Don't be surprised if they move him to safety. That was from Greg Gabriel. So maybe potential to grow from the inside. Wouldn't be opposed to that. But again, it's one of those positions where I almost feel like we can get away with kind of plugging in different guys to that second safety spot because everywhere else in our defense is so polished that it's like, it's not the end of the world if we don't have an absolute killer at the position. But I do wonder as far as priorities go, if you see how this draft laid out, would you have made the same picks for them in round 2 and let's say their trade up move? Because I feel like if you give me the options behind them, there's definitely guys I would have preferred over who we took. But like you said, Sean, at the end of the day, like we literally one for one replaced what we gave up during this offseason.
So I think looking at it, I would not have changed the Jaylen Johnson pick. There was something last night that if you flipped it and had Jaylen go 43 and then Kmet 50, it looks better. But you still got both the guys no matter what.
True.
So I really can't bash him. I would have picked Mims because I think he's a truly a legit number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. And I think Miller can play the slot. But I don't hate the picks enough. That's why I think coming out of it, I gave him a B. B minus because I still think that tight end was a need. And then looking at where they traded up and got Travis Gibson, I don't know if I hated the pick, and there's not really anyone I'm looking behind that I would be like, oh, we needed to
Bryce
get them.
Hall. I would have taken Bryce. I would have taken Bryce Hall there. Talk about the corner you took out of Georgia Southern. I'd rather have Bryce Hall out of Virginia. I believe he's out of Virginia.
Yeah, he is out of Virginia.
He's another guy. In the past has the first round talent, was a first early second, and it's unless there's something I'm missing, I go and whether he has done something off the field that's inexcusable.
He was their team captain, so I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt that. That's why I'm I would have taken him there. That's the guy I would have gone with in that situation.
Yeah, I think that's a fine name drop there. I think that the thing that's interesting too with Gibson, they think that he's Roy Robertson Harris, that's his NFL comp, and obviously we see what Roy Rob did for them. So I don't know if I can question any of the picks that Pace has had. It's just I feel like there is I don't think any of the guys that he has picked I've been like, what the fuck? This guy's just a bad player. Why did you take him? I haven't had that reaction. It's just more of, at some point, I would have liked to see a tackle, on this. And I like the Trey Adams name drop, Ricky. I do. I've been a Husky fan for a while. 2 teams I watch are Notre Dame and Washington, and I keep forgetting about Trey Adams. He's been on the team since 2014. Multiple All Pac-12 guy. If they're able to get him and he's healthy, I think they're fine. I don't think there's anything I would massively change. The Bryce Hall one's interesting too, but I think we need more of a safety than a corner. And the corner too that they did take out of Georgia Southern, like Greg Gabriel was saying, he has the possibility of playing safety. So,
yeah, with me looking at it, and I just want to look at, let's see, that's the 7th pick in the 3rd round, because trades to me. You said, would you do the same trade? If I'm going back and redoing this as the Bears. My first pick. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I just want to clear this up. So what you were talking about with Gabriel. Gabriel said last year the Bears took a project in late in Steven Denmark from Valdosta, real big corner, 6'2", 220. They developed him on the practice squad, and he's a big hitter. Don't be surprised if he's moved inside to safety. So there we go. That could be the safety answer there. And then at least with Vildor, another corner, good value, very explosive with ball skills, and had a good Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, with me, the thing that I'm looking at, if I'm redoing this, because I would completely redo it, is in the second round, I would go ahead and take either Delpit or Winfield. I would take that safety there. I would keep Johnson. Me personally might have gone with Diggs, but like Johnson's a fine pick. I'm not really changing that. With the third pick you guys make, I would have went Bryce Hall. If I'm trading up for 18,
I mean, that's
I'm going
three defensive players right there, though. We need offensive help.
And then I'd go with
we
Colin.
need offensive help.
Defense?
And then here, two things. I'd go with Colin Johnson, kid out of Texas, with that where you took the cornerback out of Georgia Southern. So like the wide receivers, I'm fine with taking late ones. The other one and making a trade work here, you have in the third round, Baltimore did a trade with New England where Baltimore got their third. I would have tried to jump up into the third round to get Josh Jones, the offensive tackle out of Houston.
Yeah, from Houston.
He was a kid, first round.
Yeah.
Again, you're seeing guys with first round grades fall. I would have jumped up to get him then. Like, that would have been the trade I do over the fifth rounder.
It was shocking that he fell that low. I agree with the Jones thing. I even like what Hub Arkish said on Twitter. He said that he would have just after the second round, he would have just given all the picks to every pick that they had today to the Redskins just for Trent Williams. And if they did that, I would have been fine. You know, if they traded Trent Williams and they had Jaylen Johnson, they had Kmet, I think that's a fine draft. I mean, like, if those are three players you're walking away with, I'm fine with it.
Like, I look at it, the picks before Josh Jones in the third. You had the fourth pick of the round. Jets got that pick from the Giants. You had the fifth pick in that round moved. Seahawks got it from Carolina. And then the Ravens got that seventh pick from the Chargers. Chargers got it from New England before that. But there were picks moving. It's great to be aggressive, but was Ryan Pace aggressive in the right ways in this draft? I'd say no.
Yeah, and the final thing I want to add, too, I think some people might be concerned that they haven't seen a quarterback.
Could it be
I think
Anthony
Pace
Gordon?
knows that it's his last year. What's up?
Could it be Anthony Gordon in the seventh round? He's still available.
Maybe, but
why would we want Anthony Gordon?
Hey, we're
fill in everybody who doesn't know about this.
He's the one that everyone's been talking about.
Yeah, right now they're at 196. Next pick for the Bears is 226. So, I mean, you have to wait 30 picks before, you're able to draft Gordon. But the one thing, too, like, just going to the quarterbacks, if this is Ryan Pace's last year, you know what, the last thing he wants to do is have a quarterback that he wants to develop. So I think with the news that Trubisky is probably not going to get his fifth-year option picked up, thank God, that Pace kind of knows that if he doesn't hit this year, that there's not a next year for him, for Matt Nagy. And I think that they are trying to just make sure that they have every single position locked down. So I think we're probably going to see a tackle here in the seventh. And I think we'll probably see a safety or at least someone on the defensive side. But I think we'll see an offensive lineman and then a secondary player with the 226 and 227.
Undersized linebacker who we're going to shift to safety, something like that.
I wouldn't be shocked if they did pick a quarterback, but if they do pick a quarterback, then
Nate
maybe
Stanley.
that possibly means that.
That's who I'd go with. Nate Stanley in the seventh. You look at the names, like Aaron Gordon, okay. Like, he's been the one that Bears, like, with Bears draft, it's like, oh my God, he could be the one. I just do it for the memes at this point. Nate Stanley, Iowa. You've got Montez from Colorado, Lewerke from Michigan State, Huntley from Utah, and then Shea Patterson from Michigan. Those are the
only
guys
one that
you're
I'd be
looking at.
interested would be Gordon. I mean, I've talked that I liked Nate Stanley before, but I mean, outside of his rocket arm, dude's not that mobile. He's got nice size, but I really just see him as a guy with a good arm. But I don't think he's going to be he's not athletic enough to be an NFL quarterback.
Agreed. All right. I think that wraps it up for our Bears conversation on the draft today. Unfortunately, we were not late enough to get that last seventh rounders, but that's okay.
Dave's
We
like,
will
I'm not
talk
going to
about it
stall
next
for
week.
the 7th round.
No, I'm not. 30 picks, fuck
And-
that.
To be honest, we're super fans. We're not NFL draft experts, so you're not going to get in-depth cutting analysis on the 7th rounders from at least Dave and I.
Exactly. Could
Maybe
not
Ricky.
give a fuck less. But yeah, that'll wrap up the first segment of the day for us on Superfans. Thank you for joining us for that.